Hey, everybody. Welcome on back. It's the Rubbin is Racing podcast. It's myself. It's the two guys in Chicago. First and foremost, it's Dan Diorio. You know him better as Spider, wearing the Raptor hat. And then you got Sean Quigley. You know him better as Quigs. And he's hanging out right next to the beautiful Cabo Wabo racing helmet. Here in New York, it's me, Large, otherwise known as Mike McCarthy. And then we got Manoli Stavrakis, which is a fucking mouthful. It's like something you would order at a Greek restaurant, but he's on the ones and twos. This podcast is brought to you by Cabo Wabo Tequila. It's unquestionable Mexican tequila with an undeniable American attitude. It isn't just tequila. It's damn good, thick cut, 100% Blue Weber Agave tequila. It's the official tequila partner of NASCAR. Add a bold splash to race day watching with Cabo Wabo Tequila. It wants to remind you to leave the drivings to the professionals, especially this weekend out in Vegas. Please enjoy the thick-cut, bold taste of Cabo Wabo Tequila responsibly. Grab your buds and a bottle of Cabo Wabo, the Blanco, the Añejo. I have the Añejo right here. And for the boldest race day experience, you got to be 21 years or older. Please handle this responsibly, and please enjoy it as you're watching one of our NASCAR races. Thank you, Cabo Wabo, for the sponsorship. Hey, boys, how's everything going?
Great. Good. What a race. What a race this weekend.
What a fucking race. Like, without any kind of historical perspective, that's the best race ending that I've ever seen. I know other people, you know, it's the third closest of all time, but it's also one where they were three wide. People kept putting up that meme of Lightning McQueen sticking out his tongue to win the race, which is very apropos for this. I will tell you right now, I haven't been having a good experience with NASCAR this year. You know, the Clash was what it was. I enjoyed the Clash this year more than I've enjoyed it in years past, and I'm normally pretty curmudgeonly when it comes to that. Daytona was a rain out for us, and unfortunately, we had to get back to our respective jobs. We couldn't stay there the extra day. And then I was at a funeral, so I taped the race in Atlanta. I waited till the night. I was radio silent on social media. I didn't know a thing that was happening. You guys had not texted. I did not open a text. I sat down and made some snacks. Myself, my wife, and Bridget. By the way, my daughter, 13-year-old daughter, loves racing. Right. Is in love with this thing. Boys, I taped it. The final caution went, 5 laps to go. DVR stops. I never extended time. So I watched that whole fucking race, and I enjoyed it immensely. And I didn't get to see the ending, except then I went to social and I got to see, and then I watched a replay later on. So I'm all caught up, obviously, but talk about like I try not to disappoint women because I'm not very big as far as generals go. So I've always been disappointing women. So I've tried to not disappoint women going forward. And he was like, what the fuck? And then my daughter's like, Jesus Christ, Dad, you filthy fuck. She didn't say that, but you know.
Yeah.
So
you have to have the ending of that.
The best race in the world, I had to watch it on Rubbin is Racing Social. So everybody go out, Rubbin is Racing Social. I don't know if we can mention who's involved with that, but Quiggs does a fantastic job with Rubbin is Racing Social. Please follow Rubbin is Racing on all platforms, because if you're a fucking idiot like me and you don't extend the recording time on your DVR or whatever it is, it's the only place where you can go to see these things. I just had to get that off my head. Yeah, thanks. We had one DM this week. We had a couple, but one of them, which I thought was pretty cool. This guy had said that was giving us a shout out because Manoli had said the best part about Daytona was Buc-ee's, and people tend to agree with him. Guy'd give me one of these. This guy was John K. Here in Texas, where Buc-ee's started, it's a state institution. I didn't know this. The founder of Buc-ee's donated $50 million and is opening up a school of business in Texas A&M. In his alma mater, which is awesome. And I hear that new building that he's building is an absolute rocket ship. So the new building will be called the Alpin Center, after Arch Beaver Alpin III, the gentleman who had founded Buc-ee's.
Be called the Buc-ee's
so shout out to
I think so too.
It should be called the Buc-ee's Center. And the second thing I will say about that, there's a rumor that Buc-ee's is headed to New Jersey, that they're going to open up in some giant place in New Jersey, and I'm extremely excited. So this is the last time I'm going to mention it. Ball's in your fucking court. Send some merch. Send some beaver nuggets from Manoli. Send some kolaches up to the boys in Chicago. Whatever you need to do, Buc-ee's, because this we love you.
Get us out there. We'll cut the ribbon.
Yeah, get us out. Yeah, get us to New Jersey. Boys will fly in. We'll cut the goddamn ribbon. Whatever the hell you need to do. I'm excited because I was listening to Steve Phelps this week. Steve Phelps is the president of NASCAR. We've been able to meet him a couple of times. Every time Spider sees him, everyone cuts a wide berth around the president of NASCAR. Spider goes right out. What's up, Steve? Hey, what's up, Spider? Oh, good. I don't know if you guys had heard this, but he had said last week, at a press conference, I have nothing to announce today, but I would be surprised next year from the 2025 schedule if we didn't go north of the border and we didn't go south of the border. That's Steve Phelps, president of NASCAR, in my mind, guaranteeing that we're going to race in Canada and race in Mexico next year. How do you boys feel about that?
I'm
very
pumped.
excited.
To me, I think I reported that they were going to race in Montreal last year. So I think it unfortunately got delayed due to some contractual issues. Maybe rival racing series might have put a squash on it for that year. But I do love and commend NASCAR for continually trying new things, and the international route would be great, whether it be Mexico City or Montreal. I'd love to be at both. So I think this is a W for NASCAR, and I think, I don't know, I don't see how this is a bad move for them.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a better option than trying to bring racing to cities in the U.S. that don't have it. Like, that's kind of what the Clash was in L.A., and I don't think there's really that many more people in LA now that care about NASCAR than did before. But I think other countries like Canada, Mexico would be very excited to have a race and would actually take advantage of it.
I mean, we saw the NASCAR Mexico Series run right after the Clash, which was great. Daniel Suarez won, and now Daniel Suarez wins at Atlanta. So bringing that kind of audience, bringing NASCAR to that audience that already kind of has an on-ramp with the Daniel Suarez connection and the NASCAR Mexico ties already seems like a win. And Montreal, I know there's a lot of NASCAR fans in Canada, so W's on both sides, whether it be north or south.
Agreed.
We should be puffing our chests out big doing this episode, because NASCAR really delivered this week. It's the first race that we've seen this season that was run on Sunday, first of all, and it was a fucking doozy, right? Again, arguably one of the best endings of all time. So I think NASCAR really has a lot to hang their hat on this week, and I was at an event yesterday that was filled with Brits. It was like one of these DAZN functions, and one of the guys had come over to me. He's like, apparently I'm watching the wrong motorsports. I'm jumping from F1, and I got to start watching NASCAR. Yeah. And I know somebody else on social had said something, and, we have a very small universe. I get that. But I think that coupled with that Netflix special, and we've kept that in perspective, that Netflix isn't the only streaming service, so it's not going to be as impactful as it was for Formula One, I don't think. But coupled with that Netflix special, if you just started watching racing this year, and in the first week you're a little bit, whatever, the Clash is whatever it is, but Denny Hamlin won. Right? Your guy won from the special. The second week was frustrating, but you got a pretty good race, pretty clean race as far as that goes, as far as cautions. And then with this one, when you finally sat down on a Sunday to watch it, if you recorded it correctly, it was fucking lights out. Absolutely lights out. Am I overstating that? Are we overstating that because we're a NASCAR podcast? I when it was going 4 wide multiple times during this race, because the truck race didn't have as much. The truck race in Xfinity didn't have as much, juice to it. This was the best.
It was the best race that I've ever seen live, and I've been watching for probably 10 years now, pretty much every race. So yeah, I think anybody who's relatively new to NASCAR, and relatively new being like in the past 15 years, that's probably the best race you've ever seen. And it was like a textbook race. You had the excitement of the big one happening at the beginning of the race. You had like the perfect amount of cautions, and most of the cautions were pretty clean. Like they weren't day enders. It was just like stack them back up type cautions. And then you get a finish like that. There's not much more you can ask for.
I would go as far as to say, and again, I'm prefacing this by saying that we're all relatively not lifelong NASCAR fans, relatively new fans, however you want to call it. Like the other two closest finishes, obviously, I didn't watch the race live. This one, however, I watched the race live. Maybe it's recency bias, but I am prepared to call this one of the greatest NASCAR races ever.
Yeah.
And Quiggs made a great point. It wasn't just the 3-wide photo finish. They had the big one on lap 2 or 3, which had impacted several cars. You had Joey Lagano, who was penalized, get that erased, and he's back on the lead lap almost instantly after winning the pole position. And then throughout, you have a track record for a most amount of lead changes. So to me, this whole race from start to finish, with the big one on lap 2 and all the lead changes throughout, new leaders, records broken, etc. And then to have a 3-wide finish at the end where like two of the favorites to win this race lose, and Daniel Suarez, who's pretty much an outside shot, comes out of nowhere and cashes the 40-1 ticket. Like, to me, that I don't know. I said it in my blog that I wrote. I think there's two people that deserve a shit ton of credit for what we saw on Sunday, and one of those obviously is Daniel Suarez. Like I said, not discrediting what he did, but he was seemingly a non-factor for a big portion of this race. Came out of nowhere late, gets the win. And then the other person that deserves a shit ton of credit is Marcus Smith from SMI, redesigning the track. Atlanta used to be a battle of tire attrition and just keeping the car in good shape. This is completely different Atlanta. We saw Marcus Smith was instrumental in the redesign that included much more banking and narrower racing surfaces. The whole thing they've really evolved Atlanta into a much more exciting place to watch races for the fans. And I think Marcus Smith deserves a lot of credit.
Shout out to Spider, by the way. I had read the blog. So the four of us that are involved in the show, but only myself, Spider, and Quiggs, out of the four of us, I am by far the best writer. And it's not even fucking close. I'm so good at it.
It's horrible.
I called Mincy this week saying how Mrs. Peaches is the worst thing that ever happened to Mincy. And as soon as I hit publish, Mincy didn't show up for the combine. And Dave was absolutely exhausted from cleaning up dog vomit or whatever the fuck Miss Peaches had just done. And he absolutely railed into Mincy. You know, it's unbelievable. But so Spider pops up on my timeline. If you're not following Spider, then, you know, shame on you. HQ Spider. Is Spider Boss or HQ Spider? And all of a sudden it pops up, and that'll give you the update that any of our blogs had hit. And again, you know, I was frustrated with it, but then I got a perfect recap from it. I thought it was very well done. You didn't go ahead of your skis. You weren't overly opinionated. Get everything what they needed to know. So, I mean, bravo to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. NASCAR makes it easy when they give us finishes like that, or Ross Chastain rides the wall. But the one thing that I thought, I mean, I still have so many takes about what we saw. Like, to me, it's crazy that Trackhouse is now responsible for two of the most like recent viral fucking racing moments we've seen in the last decade. Right. And I know I could sit here all day and call Justin Marks a disruptor and beat that dead horse, but I mean, he's literally like what's the expression? Put your money where your mouth is. Yeah, exactly. Like he said all these things and now he's executing. And even like on this show, Large, we were talking about Daniel Suarez, NASCAR Mexico win at the Clash. And does that save his job or cool his seat a little? Right. And my answer to that was no. But now you watch this and it's like, of course, I think Daniel saved his job. I think he's got way more job security now after that win, understandably so. But Trackhouse just continues to be such an exciting, disrupting team that just, I hate to keep saying it. They came out of nowhere. They came out of nowhere on Sunday. They came out of nowhere in the years since I've kind of been following the sport. And it's really incredible to see their rise to success.
It's very cool. It's very cool to be a follower, but to buy a hat, you know, Pitbull is part owner. They're doing all the right things. They redesigned new headquarters down in Charlotte. It's supposed to be, you know, a very cool experience to go to. And so, you know, Justin Marks, as opposed to watching Roger Penske come out, you know, good, thank you very much, son. Excellent job. You know, as opposed to seeing Joe Gibbs come out, like Justin Marks comes out, we just fucked it up, baby. You know, like that type of thing. It's new and exciting. I'm going to be all over the board here during this episode. You'll have to excuse me because I had so many notes like jotted down. I normally put into a concise thing, but I just kind of vomited them to you guys this morning. So I'm going to ask the question, two questions actually. Daniel Suarez, like you're saying, Spider. I didn't realize how universally liked he was. But we saw last week at Daytona. When I was watching the end of Daytona last week, I had said to is the race over? Like right away, we had to figure out if the race was over. And then when they threw the caution again, when Cindric started to come up, and I saw when they, you know, threw the yellow, Byron had clearly won, but it was just a judgment call. It could have easily have been Alex Bowman, but Alex Bowman was extremely gracious afterwards. So, and, part of it was his teammate who won. I get that, but it was extremely gracious where I would have been like, that's bullshit. It was my fucking race. He was extremely gracious. We didn't see anything like that. So cheers to him. This week, right, you had Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney. Kyle Busch finished third by a mile. 7/1000ths of a second. That's a fucking mile in this thing. And Ryan Blaney and Daniel Suarez. Kyle Busch was so gracious to Daniel Suarez. I mean, he said in his car, if that's how we're losing, that's how I want to lose. They were dooring each other down that home stretch. Ryan Blaney, when he got out of the car, they started interviewing. He's like, hold on one second. I haven't seen it yet. And he was watching on the big screen. He's like, oh, my God. He's like, I've been on the receiving end, the winning end of a lot of photo finishes, and I'm so happy that Daniel is on the receiving end as this. Is NASCAR kinder and gentler and more friendly, or is that a reflection on Daniel Suarez? Daniel Suarez is just the nicest fucking guy in the world.
I think it was just a reflection on the moment. Like, not that it's anywhere near the same, but me and Spider had Busch and Blaney to win. Like, so we were, and we were, I didn't feel like normally you get beat like that. Like, you're that close, you're like bitter and you wish you got the win. I didn't care that I didn't win. Like, it was like what a moment. The fact that they just all, like, the fact that there was no crash on that last lap and it was just like 3 guys going at it and it was just clean racing. It was, I don't know. It's hard to be mad at that situation. I think that's all it was. Just like kind of just being in the moment, being like, that was sick.
I found a negative, though. I'm going to ask you guys' opinion on it. You know how much I dislike the big hat with William Byron? And I spoke to Byron about it. I said part of the reason is that the hat kind of fits me.
I think I know where this is going.
Rottweiler. I love the watermelon. Smashing the watermelon is perfect for his persona, 7th-generation watermelon farmer. I think Ross Chastain's post-celebration is perfect. So Byron, no. Ross, yes. I don't like the taco piñata. I was drunk at Sonoma, so I don't know if he did that. And we were up on the mountain. We couldn't see it. We weren't able to get down because I wasn't willing to make that trek back up. So we weren't in winner's circle or anything like that with Sonoma. But the taco piñata, I'm going to ask you first, Spider, because I have some feelings about it. How'd you feel about the taco piñata? For people who didn't watch on the track afterwards, after the burnout and all that kind of stuff, Daniel then had punched a taco-shaped piñata that was filled with candy. And what did you think, Spider?
I love it. I mean, I know you guys are a little bit more harsh on the winning traditions, but to me, if you win the fucking race, celebrate how you want, especially Daniel Suarez. You just won by literally like a hair. If you want to celebrate with a piñata, by all means, bring the piñata. To me, the funniest part about this is that now each team, there's like a guy on the staff that's responsible for making sure that they have a giant fucking piñata. They got a watermelon. William Byron's got his giant hat. Like, that storyline I'm very much here for. So I would love to see these drivers, especially if we're going to keep getting a lot of parity like we saw the last couple seasons and a lot of different winners. I would love to see maybe like what Todd Gilliland's got in his bag when he pulls one out, or like Noah Gragson, what's he going to do? Like, every driver to have a unique signature move, Selly, after they win, kind of like an emote, would be very fun to me. I don't think it's on the table, though. There's a lot of guys that are a little bit more reserved or a little dry, and I just can't see them, smashing a watermelon. Although I say that, and Ross is pretty all of those things that I just mentioned. So I don't know.
I
think though the taco, like maybe the tradition. You ever see the traditional like pink horse got like
a pony?
They made with the cones. Yeah, like a pony, and fill that up.
They had like a Walmart or a Target run before the race to get just like a I don't know, my feelings.
I disagree, Quigs. I gotta go with Spider. I think they had that taco filled piñata in one of the drawers in the fucking hauler since Sonoma.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, they can't go and get a fresh one, so it's just got to be dusted off. He won. Somebody get the fucking piñata. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that maybe do something. Listen, he's not appropriating a culture. I don't give a shit about it. I wear sombreros at home all the time. You know, I go to sleep in a ninja outfit, so I'm guilty too. I just think, and I never use the word cringe, I just think it's kind of corny. The taco thing, you know, unless I find out that his dad's a 7th generation taco seller in Guadalajara or something like that. But otherwise, I want you guys to think
felt a little
too.
Weird to me, to be honest.
Yeah, I want you guys to think too. And obviously, we probably won't have the answers now. Is there something perfect for some of these other drivers? Because like Spider said, Todd Gilliland, I have no idea what that fucking kid would do. Like, what would even guys that were closer to? Like, what should Reddick do? What should Bubba do? What you know what I mean? What should Denny do?
Reddick has to drink a beast or a monster out of the trophy. Todd Gilliland runs the Georgia Peanuts car. Maybe he does like Peanut Butter Baby and just covers himself in peanut butter in victory lane. There's a lot of. I will personally work with each driver and come up with a celebration.
I mean, it's a little outdated, but give Bush the like Marshawn Lynch treatment, where you just throw Skittles out at him. That'd be good.
Yeah, Skittles and M&Ms.
Skittle bath.
And again, I'm absolutely splitting hairs. So maybe I should get some help. And it's a better segue than that. Rubbin is Racing is sponsored by BetterHelp. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. They ask here if anyone has benefited from therapy to talk about it. Listen, after 9/11, my family was an absolute wreck. Annie and I had gone to some therapy, and it was eye-opening and very, very helpful for us. So I'm certainly not above it, and I know there is no more stigma to it. So it's something that even if you don't think you need it, I think it can be something that can be an incremental positive for just about anybody. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's 100% online, designed to be convenient, it's flexible, and it's suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And importantly, you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge because you need to really have a relationship or at least click with this person that you're sharing some secrets and whatnot with. So here's my call to action. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/racing today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/racing. You owe it to yourself, and I think it would be, like I said, incremental positive. Spider, you had said how, I know we do over-unders all the time, you had said how Trackhouse is on the come, right? Trackhouse certainly overperforming just about out of the gate. Having like SVG come in, right? We didn't even mention that. Like on top of Ross and on top of Daniel, like the SVG thing was fucking huge.
P3 on a fuel finish was incredible. But yeah, first podium for SVG, and he gets it done at a drafting oval track, which I think a lot of people didn't see coming. So another testament to Trackhouse. And back to that point, Daniel Suarez has a lot of competition in that Trackhouse team now. I mean, they're signing 17-year-old development drivers. They've got SVG finishing P3 at oval Xfinity tracks. And now Daniel Suarez, he needed this win more than ever. So massive, massive win for Daniel Suarez, especially with the rising competition internally at Trackhouse. But it's going to be very exciting to see what comes of all the success that Trackhouse has found recently.
Pretty brilliant from a managerial standpoint for Justin Marks to make the remark afterwards how they couldn't see Trackhouse existing without Daniel behind the wheel. I mean, everybody, including us, are always looking for some degree of job security. NASCAR racers, drivers, more so than most. Well, no, professional athletes in general, more so than most. So to have the guy who's in charge say that you're not going anywhere, takes that hot seat and dumps a bunch of ice water on it. So congratulations to Daniel. So let's do that from an over-under standpoint. Disruptor, he's hiring all the right stuff. Trackhouse seems to be firing on all the right cylinders as of right now. What about Stewart-Haas? So from a headline perspective, we had seen that the 10 and the 42 were penalized 35 driver points apiece for improper air deflectors. So that's our guy Noah driving the old Amarola car, and that's our guy Ryan Preece in the 42. Ryan had 35 points. That knocks him down to 0. Noah had 29 points, so this penalty knocks him down to -6. Perhaps there's going to be some appeal, but I haven't heard of it yet. We're taping today on a Wednesday. And so improper roof air deflectors, basically do one of two things. On a super speedway where they have the 7-inch spoilers as opposed to the 4-inch spoilers, those spoilers are there to create a certain degree of downforce, right? They're supposed to spoil the air, create a certain degree of downforce. So where you're giving up a little bit of speed, you're getting some more control. Those roof racks, air deflectors, can either deflect air away from those spoilers, making your car have more speed, or it can deflect it into the spoilers, giving you more downforce and more handling. So this is a competitive advantage or disadvantage, and NASCAR called it a level 1 infraction and 35 points, right? So we're talking about Trackhouse being like this. Stewart-Haas has a reputation of this, right? We had seen Chase Briscoe get hit with a big one. The one with the windshield. The attachments for the windshield. There's so many things that happen in and around Stewart-Haas with this. The drivers don't have a lot of culpability here because I don't believe Noah Gragson was up there riveting in an illegal, roof rack, and I don't believe Ryan Preece was like that. So there's, it'll get blamed on the engineers, crew chiefs, and stuff like that. But what does this do for Stewart-Haas, who is so pumped to come in with these young guys who didn't have a single win last year with their 4 drivers? And then they have Harvick and Amarola step away. You're excited to bring in Noah and you're excited to bring in Berry. How does that feel, especially in comparison to how Trackhouse is walking around with a 3-foot erection?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I mean, we saw Stewart-Haas get penalized early last season. It kind of derailed their season. So hopefully that doesn't happen this season, but it is kind of interesting that it does, like, history repeats itself, if you will. I think Stewart-Haas has got an uphill battle following this, but I think I'm most bullish on Chase Briscoe, who is not penalized, and I still think that there's a lot of optimism to be had in that 14 car.
Yeah.
I thought he had a great race.
He had a great race, and even in Daytona, which it sounds like he wasn't violating any rules. He had a great finish, I think. What did he finish? I think he was top 10 finish. Yeah, he was 10th.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. They're just not the Stewart Old of the past, and getting penalties and stuff like this is not going to help. But yeah, I don't know. They're just not they just don't feel like a threatening team anymore.
Especially you look at teams like Front Row Motorsports taking a big step forward with the extra love that they're going to be giving. They're now a tier 1 team with Ford. So like, that's just another, I don't know. Stewart-Haas feels like Quiggs is right. It feels like they're not the team of the past that we have come to know. When Kevin Harvick, glory days, him battling for every win. It doesn't seem like they're that same team.
And it makes me feel bad for our friend Noah. Like, Gragson was full of piss and vinegar when we saw him in Daytona, and he ran a pretty good race. I think he finished 9th in Daytona. And then now, from a points perspective, he's in 43rd place. And there's only 36 chartered drivers, right? But in negative
6.
It's so many people who haven't even raced, you know what I mean, who are ahead of him. And this kid has gone through it. We know the trials and tribulations, self-imposed or not, last season, but we're rooting for him. But this is a fucking kick in the shorts, man. I don't know if this would have been such a punishable offense if they were at a shorter, slower track, right? But this here, it's a definitive competitive advantage. Although NASCAR seems to be pretty level with how they hand out these fines and whatnot, these dings. So I don't know. It just seems like if you're going to do over-under, I think the obvious over is Trackhouse. And unfortunately, the obvious under right now is Stewart-Haas. It all ends with a win.
Yeah.
No, Gragson goes into his hometown in Las Vegas and pulls off an upset and wins that race. Everything goes back to normal. But otherwise, these guys are 2 races into the season, and they're in a fucking hole. So, I don't know. Just kind of worth mentioning. The other cheater from this weekend, I thought it was fucking wild. But Joey Lagano, during qualifying, we all know that Joey Lagano qualified on the pole in Daytona, comes to his second super speedway, qualifies second behind McDowell, so had 2 very good qualifying runs. And then the dashboard cam, we don't know if the dashboard cam is what brought it to attention, because Denny Hamlin on Actions Detrimental said he thought it might have been another pit crew that turned him in. Apparently, NASCAR is filled with snitches. If they see somebody else doing something, you know, I don't know if other sports are so filled with snitches, but NASCAR, they tell on everybody else whenever they're doing something shady. And Joey's left-handed glove, the glove on his left hand, had webbing, particularly in between his index finger and his thumb. So during the race, drivers often put their hand against the netting in order to give some sort of, you know, deflection of air. And Joey having this extra webbing may have given him some competitive advantage in qualifying. So NASCAR found out about that, and from a safety standpoint, he's not allowed to fuck with his gloves. There's supposed to be spaces in between all the fingers, just in case these guys are in a burning car and they need to get out. I mean, it's sort of like, remember when a guy got fined for not having his head sock on, even though it's probably not a competitive advantage, you know, it's a safety issue. So Joey goes and does that. So from a safety standpoint, they fine him $10,000. And then from a competitive standpoint, they don't take away any driver's points, but the competitive advantage that he had gotten from this was that he qualified second, so they made him go to the back of the line right away, and then they gave him a pass-through penalty on that first lap. All that was moot because on the second lap, we had a 16-car pileup, and everybody had a fresh set of downs, and then Joey did climb his way back and was extremely competitive until he wasn't. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about Joey getting a 10? Because this isn't a Noah Gragson thing. This isn't Ryan Preece saying, I don't know what's on the top of my fucking car. I get in the car and I drive it. This is Joey putting on a glove that looks like he's about to go scuba diving and using that glove at least in Atlanta. We don't know if he used it in qualifying in Daytona. We don't know if he's done this before. How bad is this?
I just think it's weird. It seems like the most inefficient way to cheat. It just seems like something that's super noticeable, that would be hard to get away with, that really doesn't help you that much. Like I know in theory it helps Aero a little bit, but it really doesn't. Like the amount of, all he really had was a piece of extra like fabric right there.
Webbing. Yeah.
Like that is not gonna do anything to your times.
You don't think it makes you 3/1000ths of a second faster?
I think the amount of time it would make you faster is microscopic, and you could get that same effect with just like having your hand like in a different spot, or maybe getting a little bit of your wrist on the net. Like,
do I have a competitive advantage over Spider because my hand is so much, well, I can't fit in a car, I know. But Carson Hocevar is built like fucking Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
You ever see him? I mean, he's walking around with flipper feet and, you know, catcher mid-hands. Does he have a competitive advantage when he puts that fucking mitt up there? I just don't know how much
of an advantage you're getting with the hand on the net. Like, I'm sure there is a little bit of one, but having just this much more fabric and like surface area to cover that net with, I really just don't see there being any advantages. And it's just, I don't know, like I'll hardly ever notice a modification to a car and like be able to like visually see like that guy change that, because it's so minor, and they hide it pretty well. You could just see Joey's glove in that car and knew that that's not what it's supposed to look like.
Spider, do you think he's embarrassed?
I think this is just a non-story, to be honest. Like, I mean, it's not a non-story, but it's like nothing came of it, in my opinion. You look at the race, sure, he was penalized. He's a rich guy. It's 10 bands out of his pocket. No big deal. And then in terms of the competition itself, he had to go to the rear, but there was a wreck on lap 2, 3. He got his lap back almost instantly. And even if you were watching the live betting markets on DraftKings, as I was, he was, for the first half of that race, consistently the favorite to win live. So he had a real shot at winning this, despite whatever kind of poor decision-making he wanted to do going into qualifying. I don't know how much of an impact it would have. Like, to Quiggs's point, that's probably a question for a driver. I should have asked Blaney that yesterday. But, yeah, I mean, to me, this is just a little hiccup.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's also me being said. I'm saying like, oh, it's not an advantage. He did
he did win
qualify
the pole.
second, or won the pole.
Won the pole in Daytona, came in second in
So,
qualifying in
Maybe
Atlanta.
I'm wrong on this,
Right?
Maybe
And we
it's-
don't know if he
maybe
had
it's the
this.
cheat code.
We don't know if he had this in Daytona. We don't know. I mean, first of all, the in-car cameras, it was stupid that he did it. I mean, we spoke about it last week. I thought one of the best new innovations, and I know it's not an innovation, they've had it for a while, but whatever they're doing with the in-car camera now, particularly during Daytona, where they did that montage on some of the big wrecks where we saw the wheel go and whatnot, is made to see Joey Lagano put his hand against the fucking window, right? I mean, you're doing it like I don't rob my neighbor's Amazon packages anymore because they all put in fucking Simply Safe or the iRing. It's the only reason I don't do it. Otherwise, I'd be fucking robbing.
This to me just seems like a move you would do at a non-plate track. Now that may be a horrible take, but to me, it's like like a plate track. You can relatively kind of, if you start at the back, you can get your way back to the front. Like how many times?
But I think it's a qualifying thing. So he's just trying to get the fastest lap possible, which is a lot of aero.
Yeah, I don't. It just seems like to me there's tracks that make more sense to do this at than others. Like Daytona and Talladega. How many times did we see Denny Hamlin in Sunday's race get in a wreck and then somehow work his way through the fucking field and get right up back?
Oh, you're saying it's just like it doesn't matter where you are. Like
right, like pole position
yeah.
or P2 at Atlanta is, maybe I'm wrong, is not
no. I was arguing.
There's more tracks you have where everyone runs single file and their passing is like hard and rare. That to me is a track where you would do something like this.
I agree with you 100%. I don't think it's something that you would do in a race, but if it does have some sort of competitive advantage, and obviously Joey and his team, because somebody sewed it in there, felt like it had, they felt like it was worth the risk. So, like, again, I'd mentioned, Justin Marks, they gave him some shine. Is Roger Penske embarrassed? NASCAR has that if you're not cheating, you're not doing enough type thing. Yeah, you're not trying. So I get that to a certain degree. But with this, is this an embarrassment to Roger Penske that his 2020? No, it's just one of those things.
Like if you let the season do its thing, like Stewart-Haas and Joey have now been caught, but like eventually, I think almost all the teams are trying to find a little competitive of an edge, and I think that we're probably going to see a lot more teams incriminated in something, maybe not as severe as what SHR got, but I think Joey's was honestly relatively light.
Yeah, I don't know if it's embarrassing, but I think it's more if like Penske has something to say. It's like, hey, let's like focus our cheating energy on something we could potentially get away with, not something that's going to be just so obvious.
The margins have gotten so small, though.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, everything is so measured out. Like finding that competitive advantage, maybe they do need to hit these minor singles.
Yeah, maybe.
With gloves and whatnot. But I'm gonna say this. Manoli, clip this. I'm gonna say this to Joey Logano, that if there's any degree of embarrassment or anything for the move they had pulled with the glove, I have the perfect solution. Just own it, right? Take that glove and put it out there for auction. The glove that I used illegally to qualify Atlanta, I'm going to put up for auction, and whatever money we raise, I will donate to NASCAR's charity, not to the Joey Logano Foundation, which is an extremely great charity, but to NASCAR's charity. And then maybe Roger Penske goes, you know what? And I'll match whatever it is. Like try to make some lemonade out of it, because right now it does get swallowed up with how great the race was and anything, but I think it's going to have some legs. I think Joey with the gloves is going to have a little bit of legs, particularly since there's so much footage of him wearing essentially a flipper on his hand, or at least an oven mitt, as he's qualifying. So I think if he does kind of embrace it, it'd probably be the best thing from a public relations standpoint. All right, I have a bunch of stuff written down as a recap from the race. I'm not going to give any of it. McDowell won the first stage. Cindric won the second. But I will tell you, listening to Kevin in the booth, Kevin and Clint, these drivers and former drivers, I didn't realize just how daunting Atlanta was. They hate it almost. Todd Gilliland had a quote afterwards saying, racing at Atlanta is like going to a haunted house at an amusement park. You know, there is a good chance that you're going to have some fun, but you're definitely going to be terrified the whole way. And then they start this race, and they're 4 wide on each other, 4 wide in like a 3-lane track, you know, on each other's doors and stuff. I can't imagine that wasn't the most exhausting thing that these guys have ever raced. So how do you guys feel about Atlanta with the new configuration? I know this is going to be an easy answer, and I know some of these records that we're spouting out, most lead changes, because the configuration is only 5 years old, right? So it's the most lead changes really in 5 years, let's say it. But what do you think? And now, is that a must-go-to racetrack for 4 guys who are on this podcast and who have never been there?
To answer that question first,
Go.
I kind of enjoy watching the races on TV. Don't get me wrong. I love going to the track. It's great to be there. But a lot of times just having a nice, comfortable viewing experience like the gambling cave.
That's what I do, baby.
Quigs, I'm speaking Quigs'
I don't go on any of the trips.
The tracks and the trips are unbelievable. They're great. Don't get me wrong. But there is nothing like just getting in the proper, comfy spot, your own house, wherever it may be, whatever snacks and drinks you want. You can cook whatever you want. Just get comfy and watch the race. There's nothing like that. What were the other questions you had?
So I was talking about Atlanta in particular. Is that, listen, as much as I agree with you, Spider, and as much as the only thing I would tell people, make sure you extend your fucking recording time, I would tell you that in order to get hooked on NASCAR, you have to go to a live race. Yeah. Like it's the same thing. Like I can only watch hockey live. I don't enjoy watching hockey on TV. I don't know if I'm old and I can't follow the puck. I love going to hockey live more so than watching on TV. I think that's the only sport where that's true. And you have to go to some place to go watch a race live. Do you think Atlanta is now that place, maybe even more so than a Daytona or a Talladega or any of your other favorite? Michigan, I loved our time we spent in Michigan with Cabo Wabo. You think Atlanta now is in that echelon?
Atlanta certainly is a track that I want to get to at some point. But like I said, I like watching plate racing on TV because there's so much that can happen. It's so intense. Like, to answer your other question about the actual track reconfiguration, I personally love it. You guys have heard me speak to that earlier in this pod. But I thought it was interesting. We had Ryan Blaney in our Chicago office yesterday. I asked him, rank old Atlanta 1 to 10, 10 being the best. He ranked it a 10. I said, rank new Atlanta 1 to 10, 10 being the best. He ranked it an 8. I think if you ask the audience, the viewers, they would say new Atlanta is a 10, old Atlanta was an 8, or something like that. It would be opposite of what the answer that Blaney gave me. Blaney prefers old Atlanta and told me that a lot of drivers probably would agree with him, which I thought was pretty interesting.
I think we need to see Atlanta again. I think we need to see if it can deliver that kind of race and like even a fraction of that, but like that similar, just competitive 3 wide, 4 wide moments. And then I think it can like solidify itself as the real deal. But it's very exciting. I think for them it's definitely a race that like I think it opens the playoffs this year, and that's going to be unbelievable. Like I'm going to be very excited for that race, and hopefully it delivers like it did this time.
Does the dichotomy that Spider pointed out, is that the exact reason why this is an elite racetrack? Is it the fact that we like seeing, and I know there are people who are non-casual who are saying it wasn't the greatest race of all time. I get that, but I'm just saying from our perspective, we really enjoyed it. We love seeing wrecks. I mean, 41 cars. Obviously, there weren't 41 cars racing because so many were multiple things. 41 cars at one point were involved in a wreck on Sunday. There were only 5 cars by the time this thing was over that were unscathed. There were only 5 cars that were in, Kyle Larson has raced on this new configuration 5 times. He's not yet to finish a race. I mean, that's fucking wild. So whereas I kind of enjoyed seeing Kyle Larson get his front corner panel ripped off, I can understand him and Ryan Blaney saying, I fucking hate this new track. You know what I'm saying? But feed that to me all day. Even if I had money on Kyle Larson, like I understand how these things work. And it also gave us opportunities to have guys like Denny spin and then, claw his way back to close. Have Joey penalized, claw his way back. And to Spider's point, you can do that on this track, and you can do that when you're that type of driver. There are a lot of drivers who can't get through the fucking pack, like Joey Lagano and Denny Hamlin.
I thought that was great, just the fact that only like 5 cars weren't involved in wrecks, but there were also only
like 2 cars eliminated.
Yeah, it was like maybe 6 max cars that were actually done for the day. They were all like wrecks that just minorly affected the cars, and like there were enough opportunities for almost any of those people to get back in the race at some point.
There was a lot of bear bomb being thrown around in fucking pit row. I mean, Tyler Reddick, Chris Bell. I tell you who I did feel bad for in that first pileup, which again was the biggest pileup in Atlanta history, but we know the configuration. And the only one out of the 16 who didn't come back out onto the track was Josh Williams. Josh Williams, at that first 16-car pileup, was the only one that wasn't able to make it back on. And we love Josh Williams. His wife's at home, Trasia. She's, pregnant. It's one of the only social media posts that I saw. When is God going to do something good for my husband? So, like, that's the only thing I knew about this race, that Josh Williams was out of it. So, I don't know, like, if I'm looking at the first-time fans again, I'm thinking that they're having a pretty good experience, particularly with Atlanta. And I'm stupid enough to know I want to get to Canada next year. I want to get to Mexico next year. And I want to get to Atlanta in that order.
Speaking of the new fans thing, I don't know if this is a funny story really, but we have a guy here in the Chicago office that you probably never met, but maybe you've seen him. His name's Blutman. He's red hair everywhere. Interesting guy. But me and Spider have kind of got him into NASCAR. He watched Daytona with us, and then this weekend he was watching the Atlanta race on his own, putting his own bets. And I talked to him about it Monday, and I was like, "You watched that whole race?" And he was like, "Yeah, it was good." And I was like, that is like the greatest race of our like lifetime. And he was like, "Yeah, it was good." And I was like, if that race can't get you up, like, I don't know what to tell you. So it's got
let's take him to Talladega.
It's like an interesting thing where it's just like, I don't know. I would think that if like any new, like that's the race you'd want to show somebody watching it for the first time. And he was like, yeah, it was kind of the same as the other race.
As much as that's true, the fact that he's now watched 2 races in a row is a W.
And I think he's going to continue.
But
he also doesn't get too excited about anything.
Yeah.
He's a pretty mellow guy.
I will also say NASCAR does a great job.
Fuck that guy.
NASCAR's doing a great job about getting people to watch. Like early in the season is so exciting to me, having 2 back-to-back Daytona style tracks now with actual Daytona and then this new Atlanta. Like that is 2, if you're going to show a new fan 2 races, that to me is a great spot to start. What do you mean split it up? Yeah. Yeah. I think they need to figure out which tracks play well with these new cars. And granted, we've had a season to see, but like Atlanta is a great one, for example. The season needs to start in exciting fashion. We've had the Daytona 500 be our tradition, our Super Bowl to start the season forever. So like that, to me, you got to strike while the iron's hot, ride off that hype from the initial Daytona 500, get all those fans in. We saw it last season, Auto Club, a track that's no longer being raced at, but that was an exciting, one of the best races that I remember watching last season. And that was one that was really early in last year's schedule as well. So to me, you have to have exciting races early on. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be Atlanta second. I don't know what track it should be second, but one with high drama, intensity, excitement, like we saw at Atlanta on Sunday is the answer, in my opinion. We had that with Auto Club last year. We had it with Atlanta this year. So we're doing well, but let's keep on building on that.
We usually do an over-under. We spoke about just about every driver. If there's anybody you guys don't think we covered before we move on, I have one that I definitely want to throw a shout out to, and that's Kyle Busch. I mean, Kyle Busch, selling Kyle Busch Motorsports, and then first time behind the wheel of a truck, in 2024, and he wins the Truck Series race in Atlanta during the doubleheader on Saturday, and then coming out and putting in that P3 performance for the ages on Sunday. I had him on my card. Quigs, I don't know if I piggybacked you or we just both had him. Spider, if you guys want second and third place
I'm your
drivers,
guy.
this is the place to come to. Yeah. The only thing I think I hit because I had Bubba over Chase.
Okay,
Chase
over-unders. Let me start right there.
one.
Bubba Wallace, 2 straight top 5 finishes. He's running a hell of a race, and I've been impressed with him. Best 2311 car so far this season. Bowman, I thought it was interesting that he, aside from Josh Williams, really took the hardest damage in that first early wreck we saw. And I thought that was a little ironic given that I felt he was responsible for the big one at Daytona the week previous. Larson really impressed me despite not finishing the race. I thought he was the strongest Hendrick car, and he was another guy that was kind of hanging around up front all race. So disappointing that he has yet to finish an Atlanta race since it's been reconfigured, but I was kind of impressed with what I saw. We always hear Kyle Larson, oh, he's not a plate track guy. He's not a plate driver. He's not good at drafting tracks. Well, he was until he wasn't on Sunday, but I was still impressed with him. Todd Gilliland and Michael McDowell, I spoke about Front Row Motorsports. I think they're going to take a big step forward this year. They both shine. Todd's a guy that was an outside massive dog. He led laps in Daytona 500, and then he broke his career high of laps led the next week at Atlanta on Sunday. So really impressed with what we've seen from Todd Gilliland so far this season. Michael McDowell obviously has made some noise in the past, and he's a great teammate to have alongside him. I'm expecting big things from those guys this year. Lagano, obviously, great recovery.
Cheater.
Fuck that. Good recovery. Who cares? If you want to cheat, what was he penalized for, like all of 2 laps? So W for Joey Logano. Denny Hamlin, I want to speak on. He ran the shit out of this race. He spun and spun like he was on a merry-go-round and still had a pretty good showing. So really impressed with his ability to maintain and stay in the race. Chase Elliott, I was on Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, Hooters and Body Armor, 2 sponsors that I share with these drivers, and Barstool does. I thought both of their cars looked sick this week. Chase Elliott, especially after we saw the Kelly Keegs meltdown about the owl that passed away in New York City. Chase Elliott had the owl on his car. This was the owl bet. Yeah. The owl was meant to
shout out Flacco.
Flacco was meant to fly Chase Elliott straight into victory lane at Atlanta. It didn't work out, but yeah, that's what it was. And then Marcus Smith, I talked about him in my blog and briefly on this pod. I thought he did a great job with the reconfiguring of Atlanta. I'm interested to see, let the season play out. Whatever races are mid, just go to Marcus Smith and be like, yo, fix it. Redesign this track. And then we'll have Daytona, Atlanta, and the whole fucking all 36 weeks straight will just be lit racing, which would be awesome. And then obviously Daniel Suarez is my last one, and he really impressed me. Really great to see Daniel Suarez get his win and be the first winner for Trackhouse this year, which is not what I saw coming. And I don't think anyone saw this coming, as he was like 30-1-ish pre-race on DraftKings. So really impressed with his effort to come out of nowhere and win this. And yeah, vamos Daniel.
Tough speech to follow, but I'll just give my weekly.
Yeah, was I long-winded?
No, it was good.
No, perfect. I wanted you to touch on people we hadn't touched on so far, and you gave us all these ones. I have one guy that I'm holding in case nobody else mentions.
I'll just do my weekly legacy under.
Hater.
Just nowhere to be seen again. That's all I got.
I think one guy that does deserve a little bit of shine, because I said last week, I said, guys, by the way, we almost had Austin Cindric as a 2-time Daytona 500 winner. And Austin Cindric was a problem this week again. I mean, Austin Cindric was, he ran a very good race. Didn't work out for him at the end. But I think you have to give this kid, some shine. I believe we're going to have him on the show at some point. He's going to win a race this year. Been impressed. And again, I know I'm biased because I've just seen super speedways. Yeah, where he's the Daytona 500 winner so far this season. So maybe I'm a little bit ahead of my skis, but I'm going to give him a little bit of a shout out too. All right, so we're going to preview this weekend's race. NASCAR's done a great job so far this season, and so now we're going to roll into the West Coast, and we're going to start off with Las Vegas, which is a home track for, Bill Braxton, right? So hoping he does okay. Yeah, and Kyle Busch. So next up is the Pennzoil 400. It's presented by Jiffy Lube. It's from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. 267 laps for a total of 400 miles. It's going to be Sunday, March 3rd at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. Make sure you tune in because it's a season worthwhile. So far, this is a season worthwhile. And then with that, we're going to go right into picking the tires before we close this thing out. And picking the tires brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, we're thrilled to have them on board with Barstool. You can get in on the racing action with DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps. New customers who deposit $5 or more can get a no-sweat bet of up to $1,000 back in a bonus bet. What's a no-sweat bet? It's simple. Miss your first shot, and you get another opportunity to score with a bonus bet back. You can also follow what all of your favorite Barstool personalities are betting on by joining the Barstool Betting Group in the social section of the DraftKings Sportsbook app. I'm having a very positive experience with his app so far, so I'm thrilled about this. Here's our call to action, guys. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use the code Rubbin. New customers get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000 if your first bet loses. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with the code Rubbin. The crown is yours. Go sign up today, and let's make some dough, potentially. All righty, boys. Who do we like this week? Who do we like going out to Las Vegas? Again, we weren't able, I think just the head-to-heads were the only thing that we hit on last week, and then picked a couple of second and third placers. But who do we like now?
I'll start. To me, Kyle Larson is 4-1 right now, and the shortest odds we've seen all season long. And there's often like a little gambling philosophy I have where it's like if it doesn't make sense, take it. Wake Forest versus Duke the other night. Wake Forest was favored. It didn't make sense. What happened? Wake Forest ended up winning. So Kyle Larson, I'm not saying like this doesn't totally not make sense. Kyle Larson is a very talented driver, and I expect him. He's still the championship favorite. I expect him to win a lot this season. I think it starts in Vegas this weekend. I'm taking it. Short odds, not as juicy, not as exciting, but I do like Kyle Larson. And one other play that I'm intrigued by, another guy named Kyle. And I'm not sure this is possible, but he's running in the truck race and the cup race. I think it's worth parlaying a little flyer on him, the Vegas boy, to get it done on his home track in both races. I wanted to do that this past weekend at Atlanta. Kyle Busch won in trucks, and I just didn't get the bet in time. But that would have been even more heartbreaking because obviously we don't all know how that race finished. But I don't know. Anytime Kyle Busch is going to be doing double duty, I'm going to sprinkle a little flyer on a parlay if possible. So that's my other pick. Pretty simple. I'm riding with the Kyles this week in Vegas.
I love it. I love that. Mine is plus 400, Spider.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at him for a top 5.
I also want to say, I know you just mentioned DraftKings, and they're great to us. One thing that I did last night was this NBA Threes Day. So basically, you can place a wager on any NBA game, and you take a guy to hit the first three-pointer. So I had Steph Curry to hit the first three-pointer in the game, plus 135. My bet lost. Steph Curry did not hit the first three-pointer. But guess what? On DraftKings, you bet and get. So I got $1 for every three-pointer made in that game, which there were 33 of. So my $25 wager on Steph Curry to hit the first three lost. But now I have a $33 bonus bet that I'm going to put on something juicy, maybe a NASCAR future. I get enough of the bonus bets on DraftKings. I can't get enough. I will keep doing every single one of them. Give me all the bonus cash that I can use for NASCAR futures.
I hear you, man. But what a company man, by the way. Right? We're DraftKings through and through. We're going into fucking.
I'm genuinely passionate about DraftKings. I know, obviously, we have to speak nicely about them, but it's real.
Spider's taking Kyle Larson and Steph Curry first three this weekend.
Parlay them.
Wow, that would be fucking insane. What do you got?
I'm doing a entirely new strategy this week. I have 3 guys in the top 3 that I'm taking. So I'm taking Denny Hamlin top 3, Martin Truex top 3, Kyle Busch top 3. And then I have 2 guys in the top 5, Brad Keselowski top 5, Alex Bowman top 5. And then
Does any of those pay over plus 300, or are they
all of them
300
are
and lower?
around plus 250 to plus 300.
Okay.
I can give them to you individually, but they're all in that range.
No, it's perfect.
And then a bet on Brad Keselowski to win it plus 1800. The Kyle Larson being plus 400 like threw everything off for me, and
Same.
I don't know. I just didn't like the odds on the guys that I liked, and it's a pretty wide open race. At least I thought it was, and then seeing Kyle Larson with those odds made me think maybe it won't be. But I don't know. I don't want to touch Larson at those odds.
Larson in his last 6 Vegas races, 2 wins, 2 runner-up finishes, 5 top 10s.
Yeah, but I don't know. I can just see
And the
Truex
other
being
race
great
that he
here,
didn't.
Busch being great here, Lagano being great here. Just like there's so many guys that I feel like could be very good on this track, and like I don't know, Larson as well, but I don't see him being worth plus 400. But
Well,
that being said,
Good news for me, I got a bundle of bonus bets on the DraftKings app that I'm just going to unload on Kyle Larson plus 400 this week. Let's hope we hit.
I'm going to throw out one. So I have an anti-Quigs bet. I don't know if I'm going to put one in every week, but I saw that Eric Jones is plus 175 for a top 10. Something I wouldn't touch. I don't really care about plus 175 often unless it's like a head-to-head type thing. I'm going to take Eric Jones top 10, and then when I hit that, I'm going to rub it.
You'll probably
Quiggs'
get it.
face.
But Eric Jones will probably be running 19th all race and somehow finish in 10th place by like the final lap.
And everybody that you mentioned is going to finish outside of top 5, and you're going to be
that
upset
will
about
probably
it.
happen.
I'm going,
but
I'm also going to take Eric Almirola, first time behind the Xfinity car in the regular season, is in Las Vegas. I'm going to take Eric Almirola for a top 3 at plus 350.
I love that.
That's for the
I didn't
Xfinity
realize
race.
Eric was
I
racing
love
this
that.
week.
What is he to win?
To win, he's plus 1,400.
Maybe.
And that's good. Like, believe me, that like John Hunter is plus 300. He's, there's a lot of Kyle Larson like odds here. Cole Custer's plus 500. I don't know why Austin Hill is back at plus 900. The guy's a fucking monster, and I know on super speedways and whatnot, but Austin Hill, we got to shout out him. The guy's having a hell of a season. Go ahead.
Thank you for mentioning that. I need to put, I know where this is the gambling segment, but back to the over-under thing really quick.
Go ahead.
Jesse Love, I can't get enough of this kid. I can't stop following this storyline. He showed up in ARCA last year. He boots Sheldon Creed from his RCR Xfinity ride. Now he's come in 2 races. He's won the pole both fucking times. He's looked strong in both races. Granted, he hasn't won at the same clip he has in Xfinity, but this kid is very exciting. He's a threat to win at seemingly any track, at least win the pole. And I'm going to be watching him all season long. The Xfinity series has really got so much to watch for, whether it be SVG and Jesse Love or Haley Deegan, all the newcomers. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on, and I neglected to mention that earlier, so I had to get that off my chest.
Spider, you can get Jesse Love in a top 5 for plus.
Now, I don't know. RCR
It's
engines
not
are
too bad.
notoriously hooked up at plate tracks. We saw that Kyle on Sunday. We saw that with Austin Hill and Jesse Love on Saturday. They both look strong in qualifying as well as the race. So I don't know if that's just the RCR engine at plate tracks or if we can expect lasting success at this clip from Jesse Love week after week. But it's certainly a story I'm following.
Cool. I'm gonna stick with Almirola for top 5. I think you guys are pretty on board with that. I was trying to think maybe plus 1,400, but I'm gonna stick with them as a top 5. I think it's safe. And then for did I put out anything for Vegas yet? No, right?
You said the Eric Jones.
I'm gonna take it
already, but.
Oh, I got the
10.
Eric Jones thing, plus 175 for a top 10. I'm taking Joey Logano, a top 3 for plus 400. You hadn't touched that, right?
No, I
that
said
wasn't
I
one of the
think
ones you
Logano
got?
could have a lot of success here, but he wasn't one of my guys.
Right, so I'm going to take Logano, top 3 for plus 400. And I got to say, for the fuck of it, and it makes no sense, I'm taking Chase Elliott to win at plus 1,400. So that's it. So and you don't have to like that, but if I win it, I'm going to fucking rub that in your jaw too. So Chase Elliott, Amarola, Joey Lagano, and Eric Jones. That's it for this week's Rubbin' is Racing. I thought, I may be biased, but I thought that was a great fucking show, guys. I appreciate the energy, and I appreciate NASCAR doing everything that they do to give us stuff to talk about every week. We'll see you guys next week. Our next scheduled race to go to is Talladega. I was speaking to Grace O'Malley yesterday about it, and she's bringing her drinking shoes, and so is Brianna. So it's going to be a fucking great time. Yeah, so will Spider. You know, fucking
I'll be
Grace
watching
will
on
be
TV.
there.
Better experience.
Yeah, I'll be down in the great state of Alabama this weekend. I'll be in Tuscaloosa for a parents' formal with Pike, Roll Tide, and we'll see you guys next week on Rubbin' is Racing.